And out there are so many things that if you look at them, you may think our national interests are slightly off. And so it's very important that we converge on the national interest. And I think that is what the General was saying in the beginning, that are we in sync with the President? And even here, if we can get put to order about our understanding of national interests, it's very important that we communicate very deeply to be aware of what our national interests are. Now, of course, we all know that the issue of national interest is the transformation of Uganda. That one we don't dispute. But the question is, what way? Before, there was the planned economy, which was this way. And then now you have the Washington consensus, which is dictated by IMF and World Bank policies. And that is market-led private sector driven, which normally takes us towards a lot of selfishness. Now, national interests about Ugandan national cohesion and then human dignity vis-a-vis selfishness is a very big problem. But somehow, this has been managed, and that's why the economy has grown from $500 million in 1995 to today, the economy of $11.2 billion. Besides all these conflicts, that has been the growth of the economy. It's very interesting because you can see that while most of you are thinking in terms of agriculture, which is the mainstay, but that's only now 24%. The main exports, for instance, is gold, tourism, what's the other one? Remittances, and then coffee. Agricultural exports are at $3 billion. So where we least expect is where there is biggest growth. And where we really want is still the least, which means there's a big headache. General Saleh is always in trouble because he's dealing with the poorest, the farmers. It's not an easy task. So bringing them to $3 billion has not been an easy task. But I think from here now, when we coordinate, we shall be able to take it out. Now, the agricultural exports, you all know, the quotas, the tariffs, and everything that is going on, especially exemplified by the Americans, is going to be a tough one. I found that these people have very varied conditions in their countries, from USA to Europe, where it's also different between Britain and Europe, and then we have Asia, all different conditions. And it would be very, very important for them to bring an analysis to tell us exactly where our best friends lie and where we can focus grossly. Because each of those countries have different strengths with which we can cooperate, and others are in a very dire, different circumstances. They play as friends, but they are very tricky, and they can disorganize us. My thinking, sir, is that we have a much bigger in-depth dialogue with foreign affairs, and we see how we can chart this again. Because I know most of my colleagues, the ambassadors here, really would like to integrate, but we haven't been integrating the way we can and we should. It's been a little bit difficult. And Mr. Minister and Madam PS, my request is to see how we can work much greater together to see how we can formalize things that can come out. I made a summary here of the aims to see how it can be, but it will be circulated to you. What I'm saying here is just a summary of what.
So what is that? The aims are what?
I find these are alliterations to say that yes, the mandate of the Foreign Service is to sell Uganda abroad, and they are our biggest ambassadors and salesmen. So we have been using the concept of Museonomics to make the economy grow to where it is. I am not sure whether most of them understand it in detail, But until they understand the post-economics concept in detail, it will be very, very difficult for you to be in sync with the number one. And I think that's what General was trying to do, so that you approach it from that angle. And it's a comprehensive package. And once that is very clear, then you will find that it is very, very easy to deal with this excellency and to deal with the Ministry of Finance. Here, the activities. Yes. The M is their mandate. And then the second one, sir, is their activities to mobilize markets, to mobilize money, to mobilize machinery, to mobilize manpower abroad, and to find investors and technologies so that Uganda can partner with them in the proper scope. At the same time, sir, the other one is maintain harmony. We have in the diaspora a lot of Ugandans who are of different thinkings. And instead of running away from them, the issue is for them to maintain harmony. In other words, to be proactive and engage these Ugandans who are either lost or they're based still in historicity. We need to be futuristic. But those who run away for their own other reasons should be given the confidence to come back. But even if they don't want to come back, they should contact their relatives and be with them in sync. That's the harmony we're talking about. And then the other one is a measure. How do we measure the shifts of big events? How do we support the organizations here, and how do we support them who are out there? And this is a very important thing, because until we're very clear in our coordination and sending monthly reports and signals of what we need from them and what they need from us, it becomes very, very difficult. And that's why we have to measure all our events. The other one is we must have big goals. The first big goal is our $500 billion economy. Finally, we needed a scorecard of how we're going to work with our people, with the buyers, with the investors, so that we can achieve the $500 billion economy. The world out there is $115 trillion. We are at $58 billion. We're only asking of the $115 trillion for us to get 500 billion. And you are already there. That's the world market. That's the consumption of the world. America is about 30 trillion. China is about 24 trillion. These are the markets. So what do they want from us? Even China can take all of it. But we have to be very precise and very clear. So we need synergy, we need coordination, and we need to rank countries so that we know exactly what it is. So when you are out there, you need to get frank assessments so that you tell us what to do. And that is how we're going to work together. And when you go out, we want you to take the Ugandan slogan. Uganda is open for business, Uganda is for transformation, Uganda is for peace and progress, and market Uganda in such a way that it manifests very, very clearly in the countries where you are. Next one. We have our shared goals, and I think we need to understand and agree with them. We haven't yet discussed what our shared goals are, and without that, it becomes impossible. So it's important for us to know our history and the transformation that has taken place and the new intentions of the country. This requires a lot of dialogue, because without that, it becomes impossible to exist. And I was here trying to say, sir, that most times many people think that the NRA intention was just the war. Instead of saying the war was part of the means, democracy is part of the means, but the final objective is the transformation of the economy and the lives of the people. And some people get stuck in the first one, others are stuck in politics, yet all these are evolving to the better, and that's it. So finally, I don't know whether I need to talk much, but because they understand what I'm saying.
But there were some points at the end of your note.
Yes, okay. Go on. Yes. In 2004, when you wrote the white paper, 205. This is how the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence operates. They do what we call threat assessments. And it's very important that Foreign Affairs does the threat assessments from their point of view. 2005,
204.
yes, Ambassador Rusoke wrote the document, he chaired the document of the white paper on threat assessments. And I think of the 134 threats that were identified, only 3 were of military nature. 4. In other words, of the 134 threats, according to the military in Uganda, only 4 of military nature. The rest were social and economic. So it's important that you should know now that since the military has finished its role, except for the 4, the next job is yours. So what is it? What are those threats that you have identified per country, per region against Uganda, and opportunities? So, Bwana PS and Honorable Minister, I would plead that Foreign Affairs does a threat assessment by country, by region, so that we can now identify and know what opportunities we have and what threats we have to deal with. And I think that is done. We do have lack of clarity on making our actions point and efficient. So that's really one of the major issues. And we are requesting that the embassies not only build strong relationships with governments, but also with businesses and the population outside. I've just talked about that. And the question of countering propaganda against us within the remain there, you absorb it, and it's heavy. You should not be afraid of dealing with the enemies there. There are always enough agencies to work with you so that you can do propaganda against them. So finding investors in agriculture, in agro-processing, finding factories so that we can have factories here, so that we can import, to stop import substitution. We do import substitution and stop imports, and then generate exports. It's very, very important that you do this, and I think this one is much more for the Asian embassies, because machinery there is much, much cheaper, but finances are more in the Western world. So balancing that is a very important thing, and we need to. We also need to increase tourism. As you know, tourism is now the 3rd most income earning factor, and Uganda has been slotted as one of the most beautiful countries in the world, but we need infrastructure, hotels and certain facilities. But otherwise, yes. So skilled labor and unskilled labor, I think Saudi Arabia and the others are doing very well, but we could do much more. India is $80 billion a year from skilled labor, and I think we have that opportunity, and they can tell us. So basically, you know what you need, so you can tell us. We can also tell you what we need, and you can tell us your problems. So finally, we need us to coordinate ourselves and work closely within your ministry and with us. We need you to do your critical analysis in your areas of work, and I think most important of all, you shouldn't lose yourself. You should do it as yourself. You soul search and come out with the best as you feel like.